The cross is not a symbol that began in time. It is a symbol that emerged from it. Long before it was carved into churches or raised on hillsides, the cross existed as a map of consciousness, a diagram showing how spirit enters matter, and how matter remembers spirit. Across civilizations that never spoke to one another, across continents and forgotten epochs, the same form appeared again and again. Not as decoration, not as doctrine, but as instruction. The cross marks the precise moment where the invisible meets the visible, where the vertical descent of spirit intersects the horizontal field of human experience. It is the architecture of incarnation itself. Ancient traditions preserved this knowing through myth rather than dogma. One of the oldest stories speaks of a sacred tree whose roots descended into the depths of the underworld while its branches rose into the heavens. This tree stood at the threshold of worlds, growing in the shape of a cross, holding the full spectrum of existence at once. Its roots carried the memory of death, shadow, and consequence, while its branches held the promise of life, continuity, and return. The cross was never meant to deny darkness, it was meant to pass through it. This sacred tree appears repeatedly across ancient lineages. Seeds from the tree of life were said to be carried through generations, through death, flood, exile, and temple, until the tree became inseparable from the human story itself. The wood of the cross was never incidental. It symbolized lineage, continuity, and the truth that life itself is crucified into form so that consciousness can awaken from within it. In this sense, the cross is not punishment, it is participation. In the mystery schools, the cross functioned as a key rather than a warning. Initiates were taught that wisdom is entered by standing at the intersection of opposing forces. The vertical line represented the descent of divine intelligence into matter. The horizontal line represented the expansion of that intelligence through sensation, emotion, time, and relationship. To stand at the center of the cross was to be fully awake within incarnation, neither escaping the world nor being consumed by it. One of the earliest expressions of this symbol is the Tau cross, shaped like the letter T, which predates Christianity by thousands of years. It was revered across ancient Egypt, Persia, and the Mediterranean world as a sign of life, regeneration, and initiation. The Tau was marked upon the body of the initiate as a seal of passage, symbolizing the gateway between worlds, and the threshold where the soul enters matter in order to evolve through it. From this form emerged the crux ansata, known as the Ankh, crowned with a loop. The Ankh represented eternal life and the breath of spirit. The loop symbolized the womb of creation, the eternal source, while the descending stem carried the current of life into the material world. Egyptian initiates carried the Ankh as a key not to escape the world after death, but to awaken consciousness while alive. To them, the cross was not about suffering for truth, but about learning how to embody it. The cross was also understood as a living diagram of the elements themselves. Each arm corresponded to earth, water, air, and fire, the forces through which consciousness organizes experience. At the center stood the fifth element, spirit. This is why the cross appears in alchemy, astrology, and sacred geometry. It is the pattern by which energy becomes form, and form becomes meaningful. Even the human body reveals this ancient geometry. With arms extended and spine upright, the body forms the cross naturally. The nervous system intersects at the base of the spine. Blood flows vertically and horizontally through the heart. Breath moves between heaven and earth through the lungs. The cross was never external, it was always embodied. Ancient astronomers also recognized the cross in the movements of the sun. At the solstices and equinoxes, the sun appears to pause, reverse, and realign, a cosmic crucifixion marking death and rebirth within the rhythm of time. From this understanding emerged solar myths of dying and resurrecting saviors, each reflecting humanity's relationship with cycles, mortality, and transcendence. Across cultures, figures appear who are bound, pierced, suspended, or sacrificed not as punishment, but as initiation. These narratives describe the surrender of personal will so that universal consciousness can emerge. The piercing of hands and feet symbolized the release of action and movement. The crown represented the surrender of the mind's dominance. The exposed body symbolized vulnerability to experience. The cross marked the moment where separation dissolves into unity. Even the nails carried symbolic weight. They represented fixation, the anchoring of spirit into matter so transformation could occur. Consciousness was not meant to escape the body, but to awaken through it. The crucifixion, at its deepest level, was never about death alone. It was about remembrance. As Christianity formed, it inherited this ancient symbol, but its meaning narrowed. A cosmic allegory became a historical event. An initiation of consciousness became a doctrine of suffering. Yet the deeper truth never vanished. It remained encoded in mysticism, art, architecture, and esoteric teachings, waiting to be remembered rather than believed. When understood correctly, the crucifixion is not a story of pain, it is a story of passage. The passage from fragmentation into wholeness, from ego into essence, from form back into source. The cross is not owned by any religion. It belongs to consciousness itself. And if you're still here, it's because something in you recognizes this, not intellectually, but somatically, energetically, quietly. This work is not about collecting symbols or information. It's about learning how to stand at the center of your own cross without fragmenting, how to live awake within the tension of being human and divine at the same time. This is the space I hold in my one-to-one work. A space of remembrance, integration, and embodied clarity. If these teachings resonate, follow this page so they can continue to meet you where you are. And if you feel ready for personal guidance, you can book a one-to-one session with me through the link in my bio. We don't bypass the cross, we learn how to stand within it, and that changes everything.